Boukyaku Dokuan is like strawberry Haagen-Dazs. Sweet, but not overly indulgent. From the fairy-tale-esque melodies enchanting the ears to a setting that's as whimsical as can be, Oblivion Recorder sets out to and succeeds at being the change in pace Kar no Kyoukai needed. If it isn't clear from the past 5 videos, I love this series, but if things were more oblique all the time, it'd get draining. 5 movies of dreary is kinda pushing it, and could you imagine going straight into 7 with a no cushion? It'd be too much. You can't mix that much bitterness and expect a good end result. Even if it's not as #deep as everything else, KNK6 provides that little bit of sweetness to round out the overall taste of Kar no Kyoukai. No matter how jarring it might seem at first to the audience, Boukyaku Dokuan's classy carefree nature gives it intrinsic merit. Regarding how strange it can be on a first viewing though, the filmmakers actually took that into account. They purposefully made choices that fly in the face of the past movies. It starts with a monologue that tells you everything about the main character. It practically flaunts its cheery scenery with all the establishing shots too. But most notably, less than 4 minutes in, Azaka, our new protagonist and just the cutest, winks to the camera as the music reaches its peak, saying directly to the audience, "You may not have expected me, but here I am." It shouldn't work. Even throwing out how grounded Kar no Kyoukai is, this opening shouldn't make for good anime in general. But that little wink at the end of it all sells everything. I legitimately think it's a stroke of filmmaking genius. It serves to introduce the new laid-back tone. It undoubtedly turned audience expectations on their head too, which made them more receptive of this new Kar no Kyoukai. But most importantly, it wraps up Azaka Kokoto in this adorable little bow. Now, Azaka is not by any means the most reviled character, but find someone other than my dumbass who has her as a favorite. She's not very popular, and I mean, looking at what she's done until this story, that does make sense. Her defining moments till now are being transphobic and calling Fujio slurs for offing herself. She literally looks at suicide, and her response is, "She should have just gotten over it, lol." It's not the most darling track record, though it is kind of funny. Like a PR makeover from the heavens themselves, however, the first 4 minutes of Boukyaku Dokuan make Azaka tantalizingly sweet in every way that phrase could be taken. It's not that this movie makes her anything particularly special either. She's still a tsundere, like every other black-haired high society girl in this entire fucking universe. Her main character moments are still yelling and getting into cliché hijinks with her self-proclaimed romantic rival. And yeah, she still has an arc that you can fully grasp before this movie even starts. But I kinda like all that. Azaka isn't the most well-written character in this series by a wide margin, but what's done with her is insanely entertaining. Take for instance the scene where she and Shiki are walking around campus with the dog. Eventually Shiki is like, hey, should this dog be here with us? In most anime, the Soon character would immediately yell in response despite the good points made. But Azaka does this little thing where she just stares at her for a second like, oh shit, she's kinda right, before she doubles down on her preconceived notions and flips the Soon back on. It's such a small detail, but it changes the entire feel of a scene like that. It makes it go from this cliche bullshit nonsense to something very engaging. All of their interactions in this movie are like that, and yeah, it's expected that she and Shiki get along like sisters at the end, but that kind of stuff makes me smile, especially when it's as well done as it is. Their dynamic is probably my favorite in the entire series. Shiki plays the straight man to Azaka's antics better than anyone else could. It may look like she's disinterested at first glance, but she's just like this movie actually, relaxing and watching over Azaka as she grows. Shiki has finally reached her point C. As such, she's fully indoctrinated into that side character role she had in the last one. She herself doesn't develop any here. Instead, she's the springboard from which other people can bounce off from, namely in this film, Azaka. which is great in a vacuum for this plot, but Azaka is a minor character in every other movie, and I don't even think she shows up in movie 7. Taking that into account can leave Oblivion Recorder feeling a little lacking. In a larger sense, this movie doesn't progress the story at all. The main character of the series spends the runtime not doing anything but being amused at Azaka's flustered face, and the antagonist, as self-described, is here causing the plot to happen because he was bored. Now, that's funny, yes, but it's not exactly the most engaging thing in the world. Ostensibly, this film just exists to set up the recap movie where Shiki remembers the events of the second film, something that doesn't really matter because she already recalled it during the last movie. So, outside of being a little Fairytale Respite, what was the point? That's a question many people ask and will continue to ask whenever they watch this movie. As a result, you'll notice a trend if you're like me and have habitually read the only 3, until now baby, Kara no Kyoukai analysi online. That being, no one really has any strong opinions regarding this movie. They mainly just talk about things outside of it, you know, what the film made them think about, or they wrap it up as a fun, but ultimately pointless time with the notion that they'll skip it on rewatches. Honestly, I get that. I really do. But I'm one of the weirdos that like this movie. On my rewatches for this video series, this was the one I watched the most. 4 times in total. I didn't do that to garner any deep analysis. I did it because it was fun. Because Azaka's my favorite character in the series. Because it was uplifting in these trying times. Fuck it, just watch this. You'll understand. I love her. I love her so much that I'm glad the novel was bastardized in adaptation. I'm personally overjoyed this movie mostly focuses on Azaka, and yes, I know the most interesting thing about her is that she wants to copulate with her Nissan, a trait Nasu would sadly never write again. Yes, that's sarcasm, but also, and more importantly, I'm a little freak. I love that stuff. The situations it brings to the table are funny to me. Not necessarily even compelling, just funny. Like, look at this. The incest queen is looking at Shiki like she's the freak. It's not a thoughtful joke, sure, but that facial expression is flawless. Also, total side tangent, but I still don't understand Azaka incest deniers. Did we watch the same movie? Her feelings are not platonic, guys. You all know the author too, right? Nasu is like the most successful siscon of all time, and that's not a diss. All the power to that little mushroom. All the power to the director and the DP respectively for KNK6 too. Takehiro Miura and Yuichi Teraiu. They did an immaculate job translating those hot and sweaty lovey-dovey emotions of Azaka's into a medium that transcends words. The imagery of swirling stars that plays at crucial moments for Azaka's character is a thing of beauty. It encapsulates how her emotions towards her Nissan are all a confusing but precious mess. These counterclockwise turning constellations are also physically turning back time to the moment those feelings began. The imagery is stunning on its own, but as with most things in Kara no Kyoukai, it's made complete by Yuki Kajira's score. Which, to attempt to put into words, sounds to me like a nearly forgotten childhood lullaby. So distant in your mind now that you can only recall the faintest of notes. The splendid music and scenery brings to mind something I said years ago now, but still holds true today. Nostalgia is blinding, as is love. Regardless of that, both are something we all get swept up into as our lives march towards the future. Azaka is double blind in that sense. Mikia to her is like an old blanket you used to sleep with as a kid. He is inherently comfortable, and she loves him partially because of that, but also due to what she sees in his emotional strength. He quietly takes things on and is able to help so many people because of it, but he'll never be noticed. It's due to that she wants to compliment him like a puzzle piece clicking into place. She wants to put physicality to his strength and be his voice, so she goes off and does the best she can do in every aspect of her life. That's kinda cute, isn't it? The best example of how she feels about Mikia happens when they talk on the phone. I really like this scene. It is the perfect example of how to do subtle characterization. She may be abrasive vocally to him, but that's because he'll listen to her woes seriously, unlike the rest of the cast. That's the typical tsundere stuff, and not what I'm referring to. How Azaka actually feels is all in what she physically does. She leans against the wall, sits on the floor with her knees to her chest, and gives a melancholic look. His voice is calming, but she also wants to see him. Part of her looking this way, though, could also be her realizing through how plainly he's talking to her that her love is one-sided. I'm a sucker for unrequited love. Seeing how one can grow positively or negatively from that affection is infinitely fascinating to see to me, and Azaka's little case is no different. Have you ever been like, 16 and in love? If you haven't, here's a rundown. Think about the last time you felt really stupid. Now imagine you felt that way all the time, but never had the realization that you were, in fact, being a dumbass. Azaka, being literally that, isn't thinking clearly about Mikia. She's built up the notion in her head that she's done everything for him, and if that's taken away, she's worried she'll fall to pieces. It's definitely very toxic, but that it lets her get to where she is, good education, magic studies, being a social creature and the like, is a good thing, technically. It's a big gray mess that needs the tumor cut for any healing to occur. This affection for her Nissan could be something she grows out of, but that'll never truly happen unless she shoots her shot. If she knows an answer, she could change her focus to something else. But that'd also change her fundamentally as a person. At least, that's how she feels. That's more or less her entire thought process throughout this movie. Will she go for it, or spend the rest of her life not knowing? Shiki, being the big sis type she is, actively advocates for Azaka to shoot her shot because she knows firsthand that knowing yourself is better than being in the dark. Azaka clings to Mikia, and that clouds her judgment. Without talking to Shiki about her feelings and clearing things up, Azaka would have never changed. She would have been stuck in that stagnant place forever, her feelings only becoming more jaded with time. Shiki advocates for Azaka to take the leap on her own, but she's not pushing her, nor is she being too passive. As I said, Shiki has completed her arc. That's the reason Azaka both appreciates Shiki and is able to take a chance at her future by the end. Talking things out is crazy, right? Even if it's something simple, it lets you see the truth of things so much easier than you could ever do on your own. Nothing was ruined by Azaka being turned down. In fact, things only got better. Now that she knows, she can move on with her life. She can fall in love with someone else. She can still have a bright future. She can live a life unclouded by her doubts of not knowing. I like that. Just a simple arc of a character following their dream, and though it didn't go as expected, it still turned out wonderfully. Azaka shot for the stars. She might not have made it, but she ended up on the moon, which is still pretty good. From there too, she can shoot out further than she ever thought possible before. What a fun movie. What a happy movie. You see why I like this? It's just a fun time. I like the characters. I like what they do in this movie. It's nothing amazing, but it's just fun. It's uplifting. However, there is, of course, another side to Azaka. She starts to look up to Shiki as an older sister. And, well, you know how Azaka is. Eventually, she starts relying on Shiki as a comrade, a friend, lover. Azaka x Shiki. That's the real ship. The only one that truly matters. They complement each other so well, and the filmmakers know that. Why else, when Azaka is bending over showing off her voluptuous rump, would Shiki then show up holding a ruler extended out 5 inches right next to her crotch? The implications! I can taste them. That's not even the most overt example, I know, crazy. I had to pause the movie when Azaka straddled Shiki while holding up a knife. It was intense. Okay, I'm not taking this seriously anymore. I squeezed about as much positive analysis out of Azaka in this movie as you're gonna feasibly get out of me. I meant it when I said I'm glad the novel was truncated, because I'm here for Azaka, but not Azaka, but the tale of Kurogiri, Satsuki, and Ogi stems back to Kurogiri using his magic called God's Word to gaslight Ogi into using fairies on people. Yeah, I don't find the villains of this movie compelling. Outside of Kurogiri being here for literal shits and giggles, something I find funny but kind of vapid, Ogi herself is as bland as uncooked rice. Their motivations can't carry a plot, at least I don't think they could, especially since this tale is framed as a mystery, with Azaka and Shiki sleuthing around to Scooby-Dooby-Doo this crap. The notion of any mystery kind of falls apart though when you can understand everything after the first appearance of the antagonist. In that scene where our dynamic duo come face to face with the soggy cardboard, Kurogiri is said to be from Europe. In specific, he's reading a book about Wales, his country of origin. And as they get into the nitty-gritty about the fairies and what happened to this girl Tachibana, Ogi comes in to say, "Stop that. There's no mystery because the scene spells out everything. Fairies have their origin in Wales, something made clear beforehand by Toko. Kurogiri, just to stop real quick, he came from Wales. That's in the UK. Like, Kurogiri Satsuki, the name of a European. Now, I know that's not impossible, but like, you know. But anyways, he came from Wales, so he was definitely the one who brought the fairies. On the other side, we have Ogi cutting in at the mention of Tachibana. She clearly has a vested interest in our protags not getting to the truth. Obviously, she's connected to it in some way. The specifics aren't given, sure, but that's literally everything. There's no setup across multiple scenes, and there's no doing the smart thing and using this as a red herring either. It's all meant to be taken at face value, and I find it hard to believe that the novel would fix that issue. Even beyond all that though, this is the most magic-focused entry in Kara no Kyoukai. For that reason alone am I glad the novel was truncated, because Nasu's magic systems have never been something I've liked all too much. How lightly this movie deals with concepts like God's Word and fairies is a blessing to me when I hear about how it was the main focus of the novel. I'm not gonna leave you all high and dry with that hot take though. What follows is a little rant I've been meaning to give for a long time. I can appreciate Nasuverse lore for the sole reason that I don't take it all that seriously. You'll notice that in these videos of mine, not once have I ever gone into analysis of the magic systems. And honestly, that's because whenever they pop up, I always go through the same little process. First, I start reading things aloud in a sarcastic voice. Then I start skimming. And then I ultimately skip the scene if it goes on too long. Now, this doesn't mean I haven't given it a chance. I read Fate Stay Night in its entirety, never skipping a single thing, just trying to absorb it all like a sponge. I took it as seriously as I take writing these videos now. But that was my first dive into this universe, and my patience for Nasu's world building is pretty much gone at my stage of L5 type Mooner brain rot. I find it extremely difficult to go back to things like FSN when I know I'm in store for 20 scenes where Ren will explain how something works, then Shiro will ask a dumb question, then Ren will clarify, followed promptly by actually seeing the thing in action, and then another explanation from Ren about how it actually works. Yes, just feed me the plot from your tiny breast, Rin-chan. Critical thinking is too hard. That approach to exposition is the bane of my existence, and no, that's not a visual novel problem. That's a writing problem. A writing problem I don't understand because Nasu didn't used to be like this. Tsukihime, from a lore exposition standpoint, blows FSN out of the water. Arcwade gives monologues, yeah, but they're either explaining things after the fact or setting up plot beats that we'll see later. Plot beats where the info given was either faulty or twisted in some way the reader and Shiki realize on their own. In Tsukihime, how Arcwade, CL, or even Akiya give you the same exact basic info can vary drastically because it's colored by their different worldviews. What makes this work even more is that Tono is not lectured after shit happens. He has the thought process of, oh, it's like this actually, I guess, himself. An approach abandoned in Stay Night, probably because things can be misinterpreted or messy, but I find that sad because it's far more engaging to me. To wrap it back around, however, the Kara no Kyoukai films, yes, this very series I'm analyzing, caters to me to an almost idealistic level. See, they never go into concepts like the mystic eyes of death perception beyond an incredibly basic understanding. We see how they work with these positively stunning point of view shots, and then also get the reasoning that Shiki can use them because she's connected to the root. The root is an unexplainable force. It's basically God. I don't need to know why the root is a thing or have Toko spoon feed me like I'm Lil Wiki Baby fresh off the teat. To me, works like Fate's Stay Night are like getting a puzzle book with all of the answers already filled in. It's not satisfying. You read it, think to yourself, well, that's neat I guess, and move on. Compare this to the approach of Kara no Kyoukai. It's a puzzle book with all of the answers in the back. Instead of being handed everything, you have the chance to fill it in yourself. That choice might seem small, but it is extremely important when writing anything compelling. Even in a story as basic as Bokyaku Rokuan, inviting your audience to piece things together can be the difference between snooze fest and real shit. Imagine if this movie opened not with the nostalgic glitter freeze, but with a detailed explanation of God's word. Wouldn't that take away the feeling of curiosity whenever Kurogiri Satsuki starts speaking in the monastery, his words warping the world around him? Even though Kurogiri doing this makes it so on the nose that his power is connected to what he says, you get to have that thought yourself. You get to be involved, even if only subconsciously, with figuring out how this world works. When you get the answer later, no longer is it met with an okay, but it's like the clink of two magnets coming together. I don't even really like Kurogiri as a character or what his magic does, but how his powers are explained to the audience is by all means perfect. It makes it engaging, it makes you invested when you see him fighting Shiki and he goes, "You are blind now." You know, it's a simple use of his powers, but now that you know what they are, you get how dangerous he could be. Honestly, part of me has to wonder how much of the reason K&K and Suki not having that overly expository laser focus on their magic systems is due to Mahoyo being written first. K&K and Suki both have Mahoyo characters, and as known by all the L3 and above type mooners, Mahoyo was also written before anything else. Nasu just couldn't get anyone to publish it. I'd be willing to bet Mahoyo had a lot of that exposition embedded into it. At least, that's how I feel as a writer myself. If I get something across in a work that's then scrapped, I feel way less inclined to go and reiterate myself unless it's very important to the new thing I'm making. For example, this very video you're watching has an hour and 10-minute long scrapped version that I didn't like. But I got a lot of the ideas that were bogging the script down in that iteration out now. Now that they've been excised from my brain, this video got to shine like it was meant to. Also, if you're curious, that scrapped version is on the Sleepy After Dark channel. Link below. Spoilers though, it's not good. But anyhow, I think my little pet theory regarding Nasu's magic systems makes a lot of sense once you take things like Stay Night into account. When it rolled in and introduced new concepts, Nasu went absolutely ballistic hammering in the points. Truly, we'll never know unless that OG 97 Mahoyo gets released, which, as much as I'd like it to, isn't likely. Also, don't harass the mushroom. Despite how much I criticize his work, we like the mushroom. The mushroom's good. Treat him good, treat him good. As an aside, it's also possible that Kara no Kyoukai had a lot of that exposition in the novels, too. But I didn't read those. The translation apparently sucks ass, and until I know enough JP, they're not getting peeped. Though granted what I've heard about the novelization of Bokyaku Dokuan, that actually might be a blessing. Seriously, a savior-esque character comes in and gaslights someone into getting retribution for her now defiled classmate, in the end concocting a plan to kill everyone in class and herself because they all stood back and did nothing to help. That's just the plot of Tsubihebe. Or if you want to be more relevant to the date, Sui no Sora. Totally unrelated, see you all in July. But yeah, that's Oblivion Recorder. A nice little fairy tale respite from the oppressive nature of the rest of K&K. I really like this one, and I hope after watching this I have influenced even one of you to see it in a new light. It's just a fun movie, and I think we can all agree that Azaka's ass is the best thing that's ever happened to Karano Kyoukai. Anyways, you may have heard me bring up a new channel, Sleepy After Dark. Yes, I know, I'm so fucking original with names. But anyways, that's a new little endeavor I'm starting where I upload more or less rants and shorter videos for ideas I want to get out of my head, but don't need a full production like this. I want to return this channel to being just the analysis videos. I know the past few months have been interesting with regards to the Sleepy Crest channel, but I finally feel back on track. This whole year thus far has been kind of a low point, but it's taken a turn for the far better now. And if the nitty-gritty of that sounds interesting, me talking about just that was a huge aspect that got scrapped from the original K&K6 video, which again, is on the After Dark channel. Just up there, it's there, you can watch it. Also, I finally did the thing and made a channel for that podcast I announced like 2 months ago. It's called The Anti-Hypers. The first podcast is going up very soon, and it's about Higurashi, so I hope you all enjoy it. I also hope to have a whole gaggle of people on the podcast in the future, so it should be a fun time. Additionally, just for fun, if you have any questions, ask them in the comments and I will answer them on the podcast. They don't have to be Higurashi or Karano Kyoukai related, they can be about anything. Just say that you're asking the question for me to answer on the podcast though, because if not, I'll just respond to your comment normally. I know this has been a whole slew of announcements, but here's 2 more. First, I am also, in addition to all this other shit, making a visual novel. The script for the first chapter is going to be in the description if you're interested in reading it. Honestly, I think I'll put together a little audiobook version as a proof of concept too, so stay tuned for that. No spoilers, if you like my content in general, you're gonna get a big kick out of it. It takes place in a cyber slum where the main character is just delusional as all can be. Very Dempa, very sleepy core. Secondly, and what you all actually care about, as a heads up, I'm not jumping into K&K7 after this. I'm gonna look at Mirai Fukin, Extra Chorus, and the recap movie first because not ending on 7 and 8 would feel very wrong to me. Shouldn't be too long of a detour, and I hope to bring a special guest along with me for the ride. As for who that is, you'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, like the video if you think Azaka is cute, subscribe and hit the bell, please I need engagement uwu, for more immaculate content in your near future, and also check out my Patreon for my writings as they come out, the Sleepy Time podcast, and to request a video. I hope you've enjoyed the Fairytale Respite. Good night everyone.